Welcome to another episode of Anythingbut925. I'm your host, Emily Boss, and in this episode I talked to one of my favorite fiber artists, Ed Mironiuk, and he talks about his process of how he creates his fiber characters and how he came up with some of the creatures. All of his links for his social media and his website are on our affiliate links page, and I highly recommend checking out his art, unless you don't like to smile. But if you're like me, you like to have a little giggle, so I definitely suggest checking out his art. Enjoy this episode.
My name is Ed Mironiuk, and I am a fiber artist. I create sculptures out of felt.
And when I read your about page on your website, I had honestly no idea how far your talent ran. I honestly thought you were just a rad felt sculptor. And then, if possible, could you expand on your involvement with pinup art, animation, and I'm really sorry if I pronounce this wrong, but kapow?
Chapow, yes.
Chapow.
Yeah. Well, oh boy, I guess start at the beginning. I graduated college from Parsons, and I worked as an assistant animator. Kind of right out of school. So I was doing that a lot. And then I was hired to do ink and paint for a company. And that's where I met my wife. And from there, we broke off on our own, and we did animation, ink and paint, camera work, and stuff like that. That was our main thing. And then in the meantime, while that was going on, I was doing illustration work, editorial illustration work. I was the head illustrator for Tattoo Magazine for, I think, 20 years, about.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a lot of that. And then I started doing book covers for the Bizarro author Carlton Mellick. And then during that point in time, too, I started doing pinup work on the side, kind of based on more fetishy, weird latex, but still keeping that kind of 1950s cutesy. Didn't want to go too dark with that. I just kept on doing that. And then what ended up happening was a few years ago, I'd been doing illustration work on the computer so long that I just wanted to kind of get my hands dirty. So I stopped doing illustration work and took time off just to see if there was something else that I could find that I kind of had enjoyment with. And I also started helping my wife, Kristen Tursek, who is a painter. And I was doing her prints and all that. And then one day I just thought, I got to find a hobby. I got to find something that I can do for fun. And I picked up a felting kit off Amazon for like $10. And did my first sculpture and loved it, and was like, well, maybe I could, try doing something else. And that was only 3 years ago, I think.
Oh, wow. And so, what was your very first felt sculpture?
It was a little fox, a little tiny.
Aww.
It was, it was like $10 on Amazon. It took me like a day to do. And then after that, I said, well, maybe I could try doing like one of Chris's little characters. See if I could, do something like that. Did that. That was fun. Liked it. And she had been working on, she was doing her solo show at Gallery 1988. It was called Happy Houses, which it was sort of like little happy mounds of dirt or islands or things like that have faces. And then the houses were also anthropomorphic. So I thought, well, maybe I can actually create these with felt and wood. And I did. It was like maybe 4 months later, after doing the first one, that I had done a whole bunch of sculptures for her show. And from there, it just kind of kept growing, which I can't complain about. So yeah, that's kind of like the gist.
And were your previous fans of your pinup work accepting of your new art form, or did you have to get a new audience of fans for your felting?
I think a lot of them crossed over, which is really nice. It was very odd for them, I think, because the subject matter was just so completely different from, weird sci-fi fantasy book covers or, you know, different stuff like that. Instead, now it's cutesy, you know, farts in jars and, you know, happy food and stuff like that. And people were, you know, kind of taken aback that there was nothing nefarious to these new things.
I think that's how I first saw you, was I saw a fart in a jar and I was like, oh, that is the best thing I've ever seen.
There's some really cool stuff on the horizon with that. I can't talk about, but I can say that hopefully within the next year or so, I can announce something really cool with those guys. So that's why I'm not making any more farts in a jar, because I can't right now.
Okay.
But
Well, I look forward to finding out what it is, because I just love your work. It's awesome.
thank you, thank you.
So, I first found out about you through Gallery 1988, which is probably one of my favorite art galleries and social media accounts on social media. I just love it so much. How did you get your art noticed by them? Was it from when your wife did a show, or?
Yeah, exactly. It's funny. She got, I believe, I'm trying to remember how she got noticed. But yeah, it was through her, and then they saw my stuff. And I originally started showing kind of illustration stuff with them. And then so that was probably like 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. And luckily, I was able to switch over to the felt, and they were still cool with it. And in fact, I was getting a better response from the felt work than from the illustration work. So it was a great way to kind of switch over fully.
Yeah, I've noticed on their website when they do a lot of different pop culture shows and stuff, and well, usually you have a piece in there, but I find the 3D art almost sells out faster than the printed work.
Yeah, yeah, I am amazed, and and consider myself very lucky so far that the 3D stuff moves, which is really nice. It has a great little audience.
Oh yeah, definitely. When I had to contact you specifically to see if you could make me something, because I couldn't get on your Etsy page fast enough to buy something because it just goes so quickly.
I feel bad about it. I wish I could actually, work faster and work more, because that's the only way I can put it up there. Type of thing is just to be fair to everybody. Is just put a time and say it's up there. Uh, you know, go for it.
Yeah, I find it quite common with popular online artists, specifically ones who are makers of three-dimensional art, like crocheters or felters, or people who sew creations. I find that's probably the best way to do it, because if you're going to be taking special orders all the time, it would take over from the art that you actually love doing.
Exactly. Yeah, nobody would end up seeing anything. It's like, it would just be for them. That's the kind of the weird thing with the show too. But this time, the solo shows is a lot of times uh, we don't show what we're doing, so it's all kind of a surprise at the show. But I think a lot of times too, it works better to kind of put it out there so people can see it and they know, hey, this is something I'm interested in, rather than just kind of springing it on them at the last minute. I like to kind of show it off if I
Yeah, I love watching your in process pictures on Instagram, especially when you just show the butt.
can.
Guess what character this is? It's a butt.
That'll be my legacy. Farts and butt.
I don't think that's a bad legacy. So, just this past year, you did a show with your wife,
Yes.
otherwise known as Cuddly Rigor Mortis. And some people might be familiar with that name because she did make a lot of plush toys under that name as well. And the show was at Gallery 1988, and it was called Stinking Cute. How was doing a show with your wife and collaborating on pieces that you made based on her characters?
It's really kind of cool is we've worked together so long that we're very symbiotic when we're working on stuff. She can see what I'm doing, and say, well, it'd be cute if you did this, and I can, help her out if she's, doing a pose or, whatever. We kind of, we work back and forth and help each other a lot. There's no competition or anything like that. But the main thing with this last show that really got us was trying to find or think up another subject that we both could show our styles and work together. And we're still actually kind of struggling, trying to find we really want to find a subject that we can really combine together the way we did with those happy houses. So, I mean, it's always fun to be able to work together, but the actual concept has really thrown us for a loop this time. So it might be just different, different concepts for both of us for the show next year.
And
I think Chris is doing more monster-y kind of stuff, and I'm doing kind of pop culture. So,
and when is your next show at Gallery 1988?
I believe it's supposed to be the beginning of June, first Friday in June. So I'm not sure what the exact date is on that. We haven't got a definitive. It's usually the end of May or the beginning of June.
Awesome. And now I need to ask you about how you come up with your characters for your felt creations. What is the process? Like, how did you decide that fart in a jar was a genius idea, and the little toe from the Big Lebowski with the cute little face on the other side, and the little ice cream that sits in the little ice cream cup? Each character is so unique, but they have like the similar happy face on them. And how did you come up with that as a standard for your creations?
Well, first off, the farts were, I had heard or actually saw on YouTube, there were people that were selling supposed farts in jars. And I believe maybe it was a BuzzFeed video or something. So it was somebody that went out and they ordered a whole bunch of them, and they all had like descriptions. This person eats a lot of cauliflower, or beans, or whatever. And so they got like a bunch of jars, and they opened them up and smelled them, and they smelled like nothing. So I immediately thought, what if I actually felted a fart and suspended it in a jar? And yeah, that really took off, which was great. But I think a lot of, and the same thing with, the Big Lebowski was, for some reason, I just decided to do a toe. And then it hit me. I'm like, well, if you make it green nail polish, then it's the Big Lebowski, and I get to put it in a jar again, which is always, I enjoy putting things in jars, I guess. But the main thing is when I'm doing it, the face, and Chris complains that I say it, but I don't mean it in a bad way. Is if I'm working on something and I look at it and it makes me laugh, and to me, it looks just stupid, ridiculous. That's when I know I'm kind of going in the right direction. I like to be cute and, doofy and, silly and all that stuff. And it's, the main thing is to make people happy. And that's where that kind of look came from. I try not to do that.
It's really hard to look at your felted creations and not have a smile on your face.
Good.
Yeah, they're just so fantastic, and I suggest anyone to look up your Instagram feed and check it out, because it's fantastic. So what are some ups and downs from making felted art? Obviously, because now you're not chained to a desk to do it like your previous art, but how many times did you stab your fingers?
Believe it or not, I haven't done it a lot. Now when I do it, it doesn't hurt as much. The problem, it's funny because as you're felting, you get into a rhythm and it becomes almost meditative, whatever, like meditation. You kind of get in a zone, and it's like single-minded, what you're doing, and then all of a sudden you poke your finger and it takes you out of it so fast. It's crazy. But that doesn't happen a lot anymore. I mean, honestly, probably one of the biggest troubles I had too with it was after learning how wool is sourced. Because a lot of people were saying, well, is your wool ethically sourced, or can you get synthetic wools, or whatever. I didn't understand how they actually got it. I won't go into detail with that, but it's not good the way they normally do it. And I was actually able to find a place that has ethical wool. They dye it. It's green, um, low carbon footprint, all that jazz. So it's good to know that I can actually work with a medium too that is positively sourced, which is cool. That was probably one of the biggest troubles I had. So other than that, that's it. There's not really a lot of oh, and also there's wool all over my clothes. I walk around. I don't have hair on my clothes. I just have clumps of colorful wool all over me.
It's a lot of lint brushes.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, exactly. It's not those are the downsides to it, really. There's really not much to it. It's great. I mean, like I said before, working with my hands and making people happy, that's really what it comes down to with this stuff. There's really not a downside.
Oh, that's awesome. It sounds almost magical. And do you have plans to evolve out of felting into another artistic form, or are you pretty content with felting right now?
Yeah, I'm content right now. I love playing with the shapes and the forms. If anything was going to change, it would be maybe getting into 3D printing or resin casting of sculptures, to try to branch out maybe with more product. But yeah, it's just kind of, I'm focusing on the felt and the wool right now.
Yeah, the making plastic toys and stuff seems to be very popular right now too. It seems interesting, but it also seems very expensive.
Yes, and we would, unfortunately, I realized too that we definitely need some sort of pressure pot so that we're not casting, because we played around with it before and the bubbles were just too much. So we'll eventually have to invest in the pressure pot too to help us out with that. But that's on my wish list. Maybe Santa bring it.
Watch out, Black Friday.
There you go.
Now, I've caught the felting bug from you. I made my first felting creation a couple of years ago, actually. It was a Pickle Rick.
Oh, cool.
And I usually crochet or sew, but after seeing your pieces, I've actually now gone out and because of a post you made about ethically sourced felt, I actually went to a special wool show so I could ask all of the questions and got the wool and stuff. And I hope to start in 2020. Is there any advice for people you have just picking up these sharp little needles for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, one of the first things that I learned, and it's a huge help, is the different size of the needles. When you start off and you're working, with your core wool or your base structure, the larger needles are going to push the wool and make it compact faster. And then you can start working down to the thinner needles for details and smoothing and stuff like that. If you start off with like a thinner needle and you're trying to pack it all down, you're going to be working 5 times as hard. So kind of getting to know the different types of needles is a huge help. And also, getting good product, good wool. If you're not spending all your time picking, plant matter out of it, or, little twigs or, stuff like that, that'll save you a lot of time and grief too. Those are really the two main things to kind of keep in mind with this stuff. And then, it's just try to work loose and then tighten it up afterwards. So you have more room, because if you over poke something, it's going to get too hard and you'll end up breaking needles and stuff like that. Which reminds me that, yeah, that's a downside. Another one that we had was I lost a needle somewhere. One of those, they're big and they're sharp, and I lost one in the couch, and I haven't
Oh
found
no.
it in years. One of these days, it's gonna poke me. I know it, but I don't know where it is. For a surprise. So there's a downside. Keep tracking your needles.
If you're not familiar with needle felting, the needle looks like a long sewing needle with like a little tiny hook at the top, and they'd be so easy to lose in the couch or just in a blanket or anything.
Yeah.
They're just so, it's like a glorified sewing needle, really. Yeah, exactly.
Or like a tattoo needle. It goes in. It goes in easy.
Yeah, and they can disappear really easy. Yeah, that's something I'm not looking forward to now. Losing a crochet hook, I usually just stand up and I can find it. Now this is going to be a new one. Yeah, exactly. These ones you wouldn't even hear it hit the floor. Oh, great. Something to look forward to.
Yep.
And now to just sort of ask you about your all-around art career. Is there something you failed at the beginning of your art career that you learned from and that you could give advice on for other people, maybe just starting out or looking to get into being a commercial artist or actually getting their art more visible to other people?
I think, one of the beautiful things is right now, especially with the internet, there's such a large community, and there's so many places that you can kind of get your artwork out there. In the old days, I remember going to the post office with, stacks of envelopes with, printed images that I was sending to magazines to try to get work. But one of the things that you learn too is you follow the direction of your inspiration type of thing. Kind of shows you where you need to take your work or where you want to show it. You're not gonna show off something cute. Like let's say you've got a happy ice cream. You're not going to show that off on a site that's for goth kids or something. It starts. You gotta realize what who your viewer is, and push it in that direction, because I think a lot of times people just kind of put their stuff out there, but they don't know where they're putting it, or they're not thinking enough about who they want seeing it or where it should go, and that is really important. And I think having a consistent style, if somebody's looking at your work, they know that they're going to be seeing this specific thing, and they're not going to come back next week and you're going to be doing something completely different, or whatever. But obviously styles change and things change, so it's always evolving, but it's good to just try and stay consistent. I think that's a major thing. Consistent, get yourself out there. Don't wait for your portfolio to be ready.
Yeah, exactly. And something I've learned from almost anyone who is an artist or a creative person, you're never going to be 100% happy with something you make.
Oh, exactly. I don't have any of my artwork up around. I can't even, like illustration work. I can't look at it. I don't mind the cute stuff, the felt stuff as much, but every time I look at something, I see it how I would want it changed, or how I would have, made it better or different or whatever. So yeah.
And now, are there some artists that follow you that have inspired you or pushed you to grow as an artist yourself, or inspired you to get into felting?
Felting was like kind of a total, fell into it, but it's really, really amazing when, like, just this past year, I got an email from a woman who said that she had bought one of my pieces for her husband for their anniversary. And she said his name was Chris Sanders. And I thought, well, that sounds really, really familiar, and realized afterwards that Chris Sanders is the guy who created Lilo and Stitch and directed it. And he also he did How to Train Your Dragon too. So it's like when you realize that like people like that have my work, it's really cool. You know, that's very inspiring to know that
Yeah, no
it's out
kidding.
there.
That's awesome.
And yeah, and somebody that I really, obviously really look up to. So yeah, the Chris Sanders thing was very cool. That was a highlight. And he's obviously an influence. Those old, the animation, Disney animation and 1950s animation and all that stuff, obviously is influential too.
And so what are your goals for the future in regards to your art? Now, I know you said there was something in the works with Fart in the Jar that you can't really touch on, but yes. Where would you like to see your art going in the future?
I'd be happy with it just, to see a larger audience, to make people happy. Eventually, I think it would be great if Chris and I could collaborate and, have a children's book or, a cartoon or, anything like that. We always have that in the back of our heads too, that, to kind of expand into that too, especially with, our backgrounds. But yeah, it's just to kind of get out there even more, and to, really just want to keep making people smile and happy, and that's really my priority. And eat, being able to feed myself, that's a priority too. But I think it helps if you make people happy. And then
I think that is probably the best goal I've ever heard anyone say, is just to make people happy. I think that's beautiful.
Oh.
And now I have to ask this question because your characters are a little bit different, because there's a lot of little butts, and then you have the little naked guy too. Yeah. Have you had any weird questions or interactions in regards to your work?
With the felt stuff, no. Now, in the old days when I was doing pinup work and all that, wow, I used to get a lot of weird stuff. I still have a drawer filled with like letters from guys in prison that I used to actually get prison fan mail. But then later when I was doing the pinup stuff, I got requests. One person asked me to chase them through the woods. I think that's a good one. I had another one ask me if how much duct tape would it take to turn them into a mummy, and how long would it take for them to get out. That was another one. That was a very strange one. Very back then. A lot of nowadays. I think I'm the weirdo. So
I don't think there's anything wrong with being a weirdo. Thank you again to Ed Mironiuk for being a guest on the show. If you wish to learn more about Ed, please go to our website, www.anythingbut925.com. It's 9 to 5 as numbers, and click on the affiliate links page. There you will find information regarding our guests that have been on our show, along with their websites and social media. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube via Anythingbut925. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review the show so we know that you're listening and keep creating more episodes. Thank you for listening. I hope you're doing something you love.